He owned the city's criminal underworld, but his 6-year-old daughter owned his absolute heart. When the ruthless syndicate boss lined up high society heiresses and told his little girl, "Choose your new mom," nobody expected her to bypass the billionaires and fiercely cling to the terrified waitress clearing the tables. The air inside Le Petit Chateau, the city's most exclusive French restaurant, was thick with the scent of white truffles, expensive Brioni cologne, and raw, unfiltered desperation. Gordon Costa sat at the head of the long mahogany table, nursing a glass of Macallan 25. He was 35-ably dressed in a charcoal bespoke suit and commanded an empire built on extortion, shipping ports, and blood. Yet tonight, he wasn't a mob boss negotiating a cartel treaty. He was a father with a very specific, very dangerous problem. His daughter, Lily, needed a mother. Gordon's late wife, a civilian who had turned a blind eye to his empire, had died in a crossfire intended for him 3 years ago. Since then, Lily had retreated into a shell of silence. Child psychologists, elite nannies, and private tutors had all failed to pull her back. His consigliere, a grizzled man named Arthur Pendleton, had suggested a more permanent anchor, a new wife. A mother figure to soften Gordon's public image, which was currently under heavy scrutiny by the feds, and more importantly, to bring Lily back to life. Tonight was an audition. Seated around the table were 5 women. They were daughters of allied crime families, wealthy socialites, and politicians' nieces. There was Victoria Sterling, a diamond-draped heiress whose family controlled the southern docks. There was Sophia Rossi, a ruthless beauty whose father ran the illegal gambling rings in the West End. They were sharks in designer dresses, flashing perfectly capped teeth, all vying for the throne beside the most powerful man in the state. "Gordon," Victoria purred, leaning forward so the neckline of her Bottega Veneta gown dipped dangerously. "I was telling your lovely associate here that the Costa estate needs a woman's touch. I have an exquisite interior designer on retainer. We could turn that fortress of yours into a home." Gordon didn't look at her. His dark, cold eyes were scanning the room, looking for his daughter. "It is a fortress for a reason, Victoria," he replied, his voice a low, gravelly baritone that sent a shiver down the spine of every person at the table. Meanwhile, just beyond the swinging doors of the kitchen, Charlie Morris was having the worst night of her life. Charlie was 23, exhausted, and running on 4 hours of sleep. She was working a double shift to scrape together enough cash to keep the local loan sharks from breaking her younger brother Tommy's legs. She didn't know who had rented out the restaurant tonight, only that the manager had threatened to fire anyone who made eye contact with the VIPs. Balancing a silver tray of empty champagne flutes, Charlie backed through the kitchen doors and almost tripped over a small, trembling shadow hidden behind a heavy velvet curtain. Charlie gasped, dropping to her knees to keep the glasses from shattering. "Hey, carefully there," she whispered. She parted the curtain to find a little girl, no older than 6, wearing a beautiful but stiff silk dress. The girl was crying silently, tears streaking down her pale cheeks. She had managed to rip the intricate lace hem of her dress, and her tiny fingers were desperately trying to hold the torn fabric together. Charlie's heart broke. She set her tray down and pulled a few safety pins from her black apron, a waitress's secret weapon. "Hey there, sweetheart," Charlie said softly, keeping her voice low. "Did you have a little accident with the dress?" The girl looked up, her wide, terrified green eyes meeting Charlie's exhausted brown ones. She didn't speak, just nodded slowly. "It's okay. I'm Charlie," she whispered, gently taking the torn fabric. "I rip my apron at least twice a week. Let me fix it." With practiced hands, Charlie pinned the lace from the inside, hiding the tear perfectly. She then pulled a small, slightly crushed, wrapped peppermint from her pocket, a leftover from the hostess stand. "Here. My grandma always said a mint makes everything better. But it's a secret, okay? Just between us?" For the first time all night, Lily smiled. It was a tiny, fragile thing, but it was real. She took the mint and suddenly threw her little arms around Charlie's neck, burying her face in the cheap, lavender-scented fabric of the waitress's uniform. Charlie hugged her back, rubbing her small back soothingly. "All right, you better get back to your family before they worry." In the main dining room, Gordon's patience had evaporated. "Where is Lily?" he snapped. Arthur, his consigliere, immediately signaled two massive bodyguards. Just as the men moved, the kitchen doors pushed open. Lily walked out, looking calmer than she had in months. Charlie followed a few steps behind her, head bowed, carrying her tray, completely oblivious to the sudden, deadly silence that had fallen over the room. Gordon stood up. "Lily, come here." The little girl walked to her father. Gordon looked down at her, then gestured to the table of perfectly manicured, expectant women. "I told you I would let you choose, Lily. Who do you want to spend time with? Who is going to be your new mom?" Victoria Sterling stood up, flashing a practiced, maternal smile, holding out her arms. "Come here, darling. We can go shopping tomorrow for all the toys you want." Lily looked at Victoria. She looked at Sophia Rossi. She looked at the diamonds, the fake smiles, and the cold, calculating eyes of the women who saw her only as a pawn to get to her father's empire. Then, Lily turned around. She walked past the $1 million table. She ignored the gasps of the socialites. She walked straight up to Charlie, who was currently trying to make herself invisible against the far wall. Lily wrapped her small hands firmly around Charlie's apron strings and looked back at her father. She pointed a tiny finger up at the stunned waitress. "Her," Lily said. Her first spoken word in 6 months. "I want her." A pin drop could be heard in the restaurant. Charlie froze, her blood turning to ice as the most terrifying man in the city slowly turned his gaze upon her. Gordon Costa's eyes locked onto the cheap name tag pinned to her chest. Victoria scoffed loudly, breaking the silence. "Gordon, this is absurd. The child is confused. You can't seriously let her point to the help." Gordon didn't look at Victoria. He didn't blink. He just stared at Charlie, assessing her, dismantling her with his eyes. "Arthur," Gordon said softly, "clear the room. Everyone except the waitress." Charlie's tray slipped from her fingers, the crystal shattering loudly against the marble floor. The dining room emptied with a quiet, terrified efficiency. The furious whispers of Victoria Sterling and the other rejected women faded into the night, leaving Charlie standing alone in a sea of broken glass. Lily refused to let go of her leg. Gordon Costa slowly walked toward her. He moved with the silent, predatory grace of a man who was used to the world bending to his will. He stopped a few feet away, his towering frame casting a long shadow over Charlie. "Charlie Morris," Gordon read from her name tag. He looked down at his daughter. "Lily, go with Arthur to the car. I need to speak with Miss Morris." Lily tightened her grip on Charlie's apron, shaking her head vehemently. Charlie, despite her terror, found a shred of maternal instinct, overriding her survival instinct. She gently placed a hand on Lily's head. "It's okay, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice trembling only slightly. "I'll be right here. Go with the nice man." Miraculously, Lily listened. She gave Charlie one last look before taking Arthur's massive, scarred hand and walking out. Gordon watched the exchange with an unreadable expression. "She hasn't spoken a single word since her mother died 3 years ago," he stated quietly. "Not to me, not to doctors. Yet she speaks for you. A waitress she met 5 minutes ago." I just fixed her dress, sir," Charlie stammered, backing up until her shoulders hit the wall. She was crying. "I gave her a mint. That's all, I swear. I don't want any trouble." "Trouble is exactly what you are in, Miss Morris," Gordon said, pulling out a sleek encrypted phone. He typed a quick message. Less than a minute later, the phone buzzed. Gordon read the screen, his lips curving into a cold, dangerous smile. Charlie Marie Morris. 23. Parents deceased in a car accident. You dropped out of nursing school to care for your brother Thomas. Thomas has a gambling problem. In fact, Thomas currently owes $50,000 to Mickey O'Neill. Gordon looked up, his eyes locking onto hers. "Do you know who Mickey O'Neill works for, Charlie?" The blood drained from Charlie's face. She felt dizzy. The loan shark who had been threatening to break her brother's legs, he worked for the man standing in front of her. "Oh God," she breathed. "I can have Mickey forgive the debt. Tomorrow morning. I can also ensure your brother gets a clean slate and enough money to start over in another state," Gordon offered smoothly, pacing slowly around her like a wolf circling a wounded deer. "In return, you are going to come with me." "Come with you? To do what?" "My daughter made a choice." I am a man who honors my daughter's wishes, Gordon said, stopping directly in front of her. I need a wife to legitimize my public standing before a federal indictment comes down. Lily needs a mother. You need $50,000 and protection. We are going to enter into a contract, Charlie. 1 year. You will live in my home, act as my fiancé in public, and care for Lily. In exchange, your brother lives, and at the end of the year, you walk away with $1 million. Charlie stared at him, her mind reeling. You want me to fake marry a mafia boss? Are you insane? I'm a waitress. The women who were just here are vipers, Gordon cut in sharply. They would use Lily as a pawn to manipulate me. You are a civilian. You have no power, no connections, and therefore, you are not a threat to my empire. Furthermore, Lily chose you. I do not question the instincts of my blood. He stepped closer, the scent of expensive cologne and danger washing over her. You have 60 seconds to decide, Charlie. Be my fiancé, or go back to washing dishes and wait for Mickey O'Neill to collect his pound of flesh from your brother. There was no choice at all. Charlie closed her eyes, a solitary tear escaping. Okay, she whispered. I'll do it. Just keep Tommy safe. Done. Within 48 hours, Charlie's life was entirely erased. She was moved into the Costa estate, a sprawling, fortified mansion in the hills of the city, surrounded by 10-foot stone walls and armed guards. Her cheap clothes were thrown away and replaced by a wardrobe curated by Gordon's stylists. Understated elegance, cashmere, silk, and pearls. She felt like a doll trapped in a golden cage, but the saving grace was Lily. The little girl clung to Charlie from the moment she arrived. Charlie read her bedtime stories, taught her how to bake simple cookies in the massive, industrial kitchen, much to the dismay of the estate's private chef, and slowly, the halls of the Costa mansion began to echo with a child's laughter. Gordon watched them from the shadows. He was a phantom in his own home, leaving early for business and returning late, his knuckles sometimes bruised, his eyes always dark. Yet, on the rare evenings he joined them for dinner, Charlie felt the intense, burning weight of his gaze. It wasn't just a boss assessing an employee. There was a simmering, dangerous heat there that made her heart race. One evening, a month into the arrangement, the illusion of safety shattered. Charlie was in the estate's sprawling library, trying to find a book for Lily, when she heard the heavy oak doors open. Thinking it was Gordon, she turned, a polite smile on her face. Instead, it was Victoria Sterling. The socialite had somehow bypassed the outer security, a testament to the power her family wielded. Victoria looked Charlie up and down, her lip curling in absolute disgust. Enjoying the playing dress-up, sweetie? Victoria sneered, stepping into the library and closing the doors behind her. How did you get in here? Charlie demanded, trying to keep her voice steady, though her hands trembled. Gordon and my father have overlapping interests at the docks. I have clearance, Victoria said, walking over and trailing a manicured finger over a mahogany desk. I have to admit, I was furious when Gordon chose a peasant over me. But now, I see it for what it is. A PR stunt. A temporary distraction for the brat. Lily is not a brat, Charlie snapped, her maternal protectiveness flaring up. Victoria's eyes narrowed, turning cold and lethal. Listen to me very carefully, little waitress. The Sterling family does not take humiliation lightly. My father is already moving against Gordon's shipping routes. This little fake family act Gordon is putting on won't save him from the war that's coming. Victoria stepped into Charlie's personal space, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. And when the Costa Empire burns down, Gordon will survive. He always does. But collateral damage like you'll be the first casualty. You better pack your cheap little bags and run before you end up in a pine box like his last wife. Before Charlie could respond, the library doors flew open with a violent crash. Gordon stood in the doorway. The air in the room instantly dropped 20 degrees. His eyes were completely black, devoid of any humanity. He wasn't the distant father right now. He was the boss of the Costa Syndicate. Victoria, Gordon said softly. The quietness of his voice was far more terrifying than a shout. You have exactly 3 seconds to step away from my fiancé before I send you back to your father in pieces. Victoria Sterling did not scream when Gordon threatened her. She went deathly pale, gave a jerky nod, and fled the library with the speed of a gazelle scenting a lion. When the doors clicked shut, the silence in the massive room was suffocating. Gordon turned slowly. The lethal rage that had radiated from him seconds ago evaporated, replaced by a rigid, terrifying control. He looked at Charlie, really looked at her, seeing the way her hands were clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. "Are you harmed?" he asked, his voice devoid of inflection. "No," Charlie managed, her voice unsteady. She said a war was coming, that I was collateral damage." Gordon walked over to the mahogany desk Victoria had touched, pulling out a sanitizing wipe from a drawer and aggressively cleaning the spot. Victoria is a spoiled child playing chess with grown men, but she is right about one thing. The truce with the Sterling family is over. He tossed the wipe into a brass bin. "From this moment on, you do not leave the main house without Arthur or myself. You do not answer unknown numbers. You do not go near the windows in the front drawing room." Charlie felt a flare of indignation override her fear. "I am not a prisoner, Gordon. I am your employee, or your fiancé. I'm not sure which one is worse right now." Gordon closed the distance between them in 2 long strides. He stopped inches from her, towering over her, his dark eyes blazing with sudden, intense energy. He reached out, his large hand cupping her jaw, his thumb tracing her cheekbone with surprising gentleness. The contact sent a jolt of electricity straight through her. "You are not an employee, Charlie," he murmured, his voice dropping to that dangerous husky timbre that made her knees weak. "You are the woman wearing my ring. You are the only person in 3 years who has made my daughter smile. That makes you the most valuable thing in this entire city, and I protect what is mine, do you understand?" His words were possessive, arrogant, and undeniably thrilling. Charlie couldn't breathe. She just nodded against his hand. "Good," he whispered, his gaze dropping to her lips for a fraction of a second before he abruptly pulled away. "Dinner is in 20 minutes. Fix your hair." The weeks that followed were a blur of rising tension. The Costa estate transformed from a mansion into a fortress. More guards patrolled the grounds with assault rifles. Arthur was constantly whispering grim reports into Gordon's ear, shipments intercepted at the docks, warehouses torched in the industrial district. The Sterling family was striking hard and fast. Gordon became a ghost. He worked 20 hours a day, returning to the estate in the dead of night, smelling of gunpowder and scotch. Yet, the contract held. Charlie played her part. She attended 2 charity galas on Gordon's arm, smiling for cameras, wearing diamonds that cost more than her childhood home, pretending to be the adoring fiancé of a legitimate businessman. In private, however, the dynamic shifted. Charlie saw the cracks in the armor. One rain-slicked Tuesday night at 2 a.m., Charlie was awake in the kitchen, heating milk for Lily, who had suffered a nightmare. The side door burst open, and Gordon stumbled in, leaning heavily on Arthur. Gordon's charcoal suit was torn at the shoulder, soaking wet with rain and dark, slick blood. Charlie gasped, nearly dropping the mug. "Oh my God, Gordon, it's nothing," Gordon grunted, trying to straighten up and failing. His face was gray with pain. "A disagreement near the rail yard. A graze. It's bleeding through your jacket. Sit down," Charlie ordered, her nursing school training kicking in instantly. She pointed to a bar stool. "Arthur, get the first aid kit from the pantry, the big one." Surprisingly, both men obeyed her. For the next hour, the kitchen became an impromptu operating theater. Gordon sat shirtless on the stool, his torso a roadmap of old scars and fresh tattoos. Charlie worked with efficient, steady hands, cleaning the jagged bullet graze on his deltoid, stitching the wound, and bandaging it. Gordon watched her the entire time. He didn't flinch when the needle pierced his skin. He just studied her face, her focused expression, the way a stray curl fell over her eye. The adrenaline of the ambush was fading, replaced by a different kind of heat. When she tied the final bandage, she stepped back, exhaling shakily. "You need antibiotics. And rest. You lost blood. You have steady hands for a waitress," Gordon murmured. "I told you. I was a nursing student before life happened." Gordon reached out with his good arm, taking her hand. His skin was burning hot. "Why didn't you run tonight, Charlie? You saw the blood. You know what I am. Lily needs me, she said simply. And if Lily wasn't here? Charlie looked into those abyssal eyes. A month ago, she would have said yes. Now? Now, the thought of leaving this dangerous, complicated man made her chest ache. I don't know, she whispered truthfully. Gordon pulled her gently toward him until she was standing between his knees. The air crackled between them. He leaned his forehead against her stomach, letting out a long sigh of exhaustion he would never show the outside world. For a moment, the monster of the city was just a tired man, seeking comfort. Charlie hesitantly placed a hand on his damp hair. The kitchen door swung open. It was Arthur, holding a secure phone. The moment shattered. Gordon instantly stiffened, pulling away from Charlie and putting his mask back on. Boss, Arthur said, his face grim. It's the feds. Agent Miller. He's threatening a raid on the warehouse in an hour. Someone leaked the location of the new shipment. Gordon's face hardened into stone. The tender moment was gone, replaced by cold fury. Only 4 people knew that location, he snarled, standing up, ignoring his injury. Find the leak, Arthur. And when you do, bring them to me. He strode out of the kitchen without looking back at Charlie. The leak wasn't one of Gordon's men. 30 miles away, in a dimly lit motel room, Charlie's brother, Tommy, sat shivering on a stained mattress. 2 men were with him. One was Agent Miller of the FBI, looking smug in a cheap suit. The other was a massive enforcer for the Sterling family, cleaning his fingernails with a switchblade. On the table between them was a small, high-tech listening device. You did good with the warehouse tip, kid, the Sterling enforcer growled. But that was just the appetizer. I can't do any more, Tommy pleaded, tears streaming down his face. Gordon will kill me. He paid my debts. He saved my life. He bought your sister, Agent Miller corrected coldly. He's using her as a human shield against my investigation. We are trying to save her, Tommy. The Sterling enforcer leaned forward, tapping the switchblade on the table. Let's make this simple. The Costa Charity Gala is Saturday night. You're invited, thanks to your sister. You take this bug, and you plant it inside Gordon's private study, under the desk. I can't. The security. If you don't, the enforcer interrupted, his voice dropping. My boss, Mr. Sterling, has decided that if he can't have Gordon's empire, he'll burn down everything Gordon cares about, starting with the new fiancé. We will hit the gala, and your sister will be the first casualty. Tommy stared at the bug. Betray the man who saved him, or let his sister die. He picked up the device, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The Costa Charity Gala was the event of the season, a dazzling display of wealth designed to whitewash Gordon's reputation. Politicians rubbed elbows with syndicate captains in the estate's massive ballroom. Charlie felt like Cinderella, terrified the clock was about to strike midnight. She wore an emerald silk gown, holding Lily's hand tightly. Gordon stood beside them, the perfect host. Only Charlie noticed his rigid jaw and the earpiece hidden in his ear. He kept a hand constantly on the small of Charlie's back, a gesture of fierce, undeniable protection. You look breathtaking, he murmured. I feel like I'm wearing a costume, Charlie admitted. It suits you. Tommy arrived 20 minutes late, sweating through a cheap rental suit and looking terrified. Charlie hugged him fiercely. Tommy, are you okay? Before Tommy could stammer a reply, Gordon's phone buzzed. He frowned and stepped away. Instantly, Tommy grabbed Charlie's arm with a painful grip. Charlie, we have to leave. Now. It's a trap. Arthur materialized from the crowd, flanked by 2 guards. His usual stony face was contorted with absolute rage. He grabbed Tommy by the lapels, reaching into the boy's pocket to yank out a sleek black listening device. Charlie stared in horror. Tommy? What is that? The music stopped. The laughter faded. Gordon appeared at the top of the grand staircase, looking down at Arthur, holding the bug, Tommy cowering, and Charlie standing right beside him. Gordon descended slowly, the crowd parting like the Red Sea. The nascent warmth Charlie had seen in him over the past weeks was gone. His eyes were dead. He stopped in front of Charlie. Did you know? He asked softly. Gordon, no, I swear. Did you know? He roared, his voice echoing through the silent ballroom. Tommy sobbed. She didn't know. The feds, The Sterlings, they said they'd kill her if I didn't plant it. Crash. The massive bay windows shattered inwards. Smoke canisters flew through the broken glass, filling the room with blinding white smoke. Screams erupted as automatic gunfire tore through the garden. The Sterlings hadn't waited for the wiretap. Get down! Gordon tackled Charlie to the polished floor, shielding her body with his own as bullets shredded the plaster above. Lily! Charlie screamed. Nanny took her to the safe room. Gordon shouted over the chaos, pulling his weapon. His eyes were wild. He hated Charlie for the perceived betrayal, yet he was still willing to die for her. Stay down! He rolled off her and began returning fire. The ballroom became a chaotic war zone of shattered crystal and blood. Gordon moved with lethal precision. Suddenly, a Sterling enforcer burst through a side door, aiming an Uzi directly at Gordon's unprotected back. Charlie didn't think. She grabbed a heavy silver champagne bucket from a fallen table and hurled it with all her strength. It struck the gunman square in the temple. His aim jerked, bullets hitting the ceiling instead of Gordon. Gordon spun and dropped the man instantly. As sirens wailed in the distance, the surviving attackers retreated. The ballroom was a ruin of broken glass and overturned tables. Gordon holstered his weapon and walked over to Charlie. He pulled her to her feet and crushed her against his chest, burying his face in her neck. You saved my life, he whispered. He pulled back, gripping her shoulders. Tommy confessed to Arthur during the firefight. He said they threatened to kill you. I almost killed you for betrayal. We're okay, Charlie breathed. Lily is okay. Gordon shook his head slowly. No, the contract is over. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box containing a vintage, blood-red ruby ring. My grandmother's ring. The contract is null. Take your brother, take the money, and leave tonight. Be safe. Or, he held up the ruby. You stay. For real. No pretending. You be Lily's mother, and my wife. Knowing this is what our life looks like. Charlie looked at the shattered ballroom, the blood, and the constant fear. Then, she thought of Lily, and the way Gordon had shielded her. She took the ruby and slipped it onto her finger. I'm not very good at running away, she whispered. Gordon kissed her hard amid the wreckage of his empire, sealing a future that was dangerous, difficult, and absolutely real. What an explosive ending for Gordon and Charlie. From a contract arrangement to a love forged in fire, their journey was anything but easy. If you enjoyed this intense mafia romance filled with twists, betrayal, and redemption, please smash that like button, share this story with your fellow romance lovers, and subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales every week. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an upload.